So, E3 inches ever closer. I'm currently recording this early on the morning of Friday, June 4th, which means that we are 8 days away from the beginning of E3 2021 on Saturday, June 12th. And it also means that we're, I think, 12 days away from Nintendo's E3 Direct presentation. They just gave us their plans for E3 earlier this week, where they confirmed a 40-minute Direct and then a 3-hour Treehouse following immediately after that Direct. It's very interesting. It's very exciting. I mean, we've all been discussing this for weeks now, the return of E3. It's a big deal because E3 had to take a year off last year because of the pandemic. So this is the first E3 in 2 years, and having Nintendo a part of it is very, very exciting. And then, of course, beyond just that, for myself and also a lot of you who follow me as huge Metroid fans, there seems to be a lot of Metroid energy and leaks and rumors and thoughts floating around out there in the air. It's a very exciting time because there's plenty of reason to think that maybe Metroid is going to show up at Nintendo's E3 in just under 2 weeks. I have a lot of thoughts about it, some things I've heard, some things that have been going on. You guys know that that's what I do, is I discuss and break down Metroid stuff whenever I can. It definitely applies to the E3 conversation, so that's what I'm going to do today. Naturally, before I dive any deeper into the Metroid E3 topic, I always like to remind you guys that I am always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I am hoping to cross 17,000 subscribers before the end of this year. I am getting closer every single day, which is very cool. I appreciate you guys. I upload several videos every single week. I try to live stream around once a week whenever I can. I cover all things Nintendo. I obviously cover all things Metroid, and I discuss all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then hopefully you will consider subscribing to the channel. So basically what we're talking about today is what the chances of Metroid showing up at E3 this year actually are, because there's plenty of reasons to believe that Metroid might have a small to even a significant presence at Nintendo's E3 Direct or during their Treehouse or whatever, which is very exciting. There is reasons to think that it also won't happen as well. That's kind of the purpose of the conversation. And part of the genesis in my own brain for making this video and discussing it is the discussion video that I posted just earlier this week as well, where myself and Super Metal Dave sat down for about 45 minutes and we discussed our thoughts and predictions about Nintendo's E3 plans. And there was a lot of discussion about Metroid in that. Of course, he's also a huge Metroid fan, just like I am. And it kind of just made me realize, like, you know, it would be fun to touch on the chances at seeing Metroid at E3, at Nintendo's E3 Direct, and the fact that I am somebody who believes, you know, slightly more than 50% chance that Metroid will show up at the Direct, and I want to talk about what I think that means, but also what could happen if Metroid is a no-show. So we all know about the Metroid games that are currently being discussed or possibly being made, right? There's the main one, which is Metroid Prime 4, the only officially announced and confirmed Metroid game to be in development, announced in 2017, restarted and given to Retro in 2019. Here we are 2.5 years later from the restart, and we've still seen nothing, and we've also never heard Nintendo really talk about it ever since the date of that delay back in January of 2019. There's also the Metroid Prime trilogy, some sort of HD port or remaster coming to the Switch that has long been discussed. Plenty of rumors, plenty of people talking both publicly and behind the scenes about that for over 2 years, okay? The Prime trilogy on the Switch has been something that just makes sense and is believable for a long time. However, it's never happened. Maybe the Prime 4 delay changed the plans, maybe it's actually never been real and we've all been duped. Anything is possible. And then most recently, the discussion about a 2D Metroid game being made for the Switch and even possibly showing up at E3. Now, I've been talking about a 2D Metroid on the Switch for a long time. I would say, I think it probably goes back to 2019, I'd have to check, but I've had reason to believe that that's something that's going to happen on the Switch for a while, and I think I'm one of the first people that really kind of put the idea out there and was talking about it like, hey, this is probably going to happen, it really makes sense. And now, in 2021, with E3 coming, we're finally hearing more significant discussions and potential leaks that, yeah, maybe there is a 2D Metroid game being made, and it might release this year, it might show up at E3 next week. And then, of course, we have the other obvious factor here, which is that 2021 is the 35th anniversary of Metroid. We've all discussed it. Mario's 35th anniversary was last year. Nintendo celebrated that and released new games and a collection of games. This year, we know it's Zelda's 35th anniversary, so most of us expect more Zelda content. We've already gotten Skyward Sword HD. Are we going to get other stuff? Probably. And then with Metroid also having a 35th anniversary, it's like, well, if they did Mario last year, if we believe Nintendo is going to do Zelda this year, why wouldn't they also do something for Metroid this year as well? I think that they will acknowledge and celebrate in some way, shape, or form the Metroid anniversary. And I mean celebrate it in the form of some kind of game announcement or reveal or something. I don't mean they're just going to be like, oh, we made this Samus keychain to celebrate, you know, that you can pick up at your local Best Buy. No, I'm not talking about a little toy or a trinket. I mean a game. I think Nintendo is going to do something game-related to celebrate Metroid's anniversary. And so all of these factors, you know, the 3 games I discussed, the celebration of the anniversary this year, is why I believe, again, more than 50% chance Metroid will show up at E3 next week. The reasons why it's so easy for me to believe it really is kind of what I just said, man. I mean, the fact that the anniversary happens this year is huge. I believe they will celebrate it. I'm someone who thinks the 2D Metroid game is real. I've believed in it for way longer than these current public leaks state. Now there are public leaks. We all kind of think it's happening. Maybe Mercury Steam is making this game. So I believe that has a great chance at showing up. The fact that E3 is returning after 2 years and Nintendo is playing a part also adds credibility to Metroid possibly showing up. And the fact that Metroid Prime 4 is a game. It first was revealed and discussed at an E3 show. It's been 4 years since it's announced and 2.5 years since it's been delayed. I certainly don't think the game is releasing this year, but I said this on January 2nd of this year that I think we will see Metroid Prime 4 before the end of 2021. And while that could mean after E3, it also could mean at E3. If Nintendo does have a plan to reveal and show anything about Metroid Prime 4, some kind of update, a teaser trailer, a release window, a release year, a title, a freaking screenshot, whatever they might show, if they plan to do it in 2021 like I think, I mean, E3 has to be the #1 place they would choose to do it. Beyond that, there are some other options that I'll get to in a moment, but when I just think about it, it's like, how could they not choose E3 as the forum to want to update us on Metroid Prime 4? So that's what it is, man. The anniversary, I believe the 2D Metroid thing, and I think Metroid Prime 4 is getting an update and some sort of showcase in 2021. So to me, it all makes sense to happen at E3. I think there's more than a 50% chance Metroid in some way is getting discussed and acknowledged and shown at the E3 Direct next week. However, it's also important for us to be realistic, and I'm also kind of talking to myself when I say that as a Metroid fan that wants to be optimistic and is praying to the heavens every day, please, please, Nintendo Lords, give me something Metroid. There's also reason to believe that Metroid might not show up at E3 next week as well. There's a good chance that now is just not the time for Nintendo to acknowledge or show anything Metroid, no matter what it is, Prime Trilogy, Prime 4, whatever, anniversary or not. Maybe E3 is not the time. So we have to acknowledge that. And I think one of the main reasons that I wanted to make this video and have this discussion is to double down on something I've said in the past, like on live streams and videos. And I want everyone who is excited for Metroid to really stop, open your ears, and listen to me when I say this. If Metroid is a no-show at E3 this year, their Direct and their Treehouse comes and goes, and Nintendo doesn't utter a peep about Metroid, will it be disappointing? Absolutely. Soul-crushing? You betcha. But is it going to be the end of the world for seeing Metroid this year? No, I don't think so. Even though I tend to believe Metroid's going to show up next week, if it doesn't, that's not going to completely destroy me, or I think the chances of seeing Metroid in 2021. Because there is plenty of time after E3 on June 12th, after their Direct on June 12th, for them to still talk about Metroid. June 12th is still less than halfway through the year. We've got 6.5 months to go once their E3 Direct and Treehouse is concluded. That's more than half the year to showcase anything. And I think that earlier this year, Nintendo showed us regular Nintendo Directs are clearly back. They held the 51-minute Direct in February. I don't think any of us think that that was the last Nintendo Direct they're ever going to do. They're probably going to do their typical September, October, maybe August Nintendo Direct. You know, they're going to do another 1 or 2 directs after E3. Those are all great opportunities for them to showcase something Metroid. Not to mention, if they held a Mario-focused direct anniversary celebration last year, they could very easily hold a Zelda or a Metroid-focused direct as well. And again, that would probably happen after E3. Also, the other huge factor that I've brought up several times is, honestly, you guys, the Game Awards. That happens every December. We know Jeff Keighley is going to have another Game Awards this year in December, and I think that we've seen Nintendo likes having some kind of a presence, showing some kind of stuff. I mean, the Bayonetta reveal was a huge thing at the time that that happened. They've also revealed, I mean, the first time they ever showed anything Breath of the Wild as far as gameplay was Miyamoto and Aonuma sitting on a couch playing Breath of the Wild with the off-screen footage. I mean, we've all seen that, right? Like, and so Nintendo is willing to do that. Heck, they even referenced Star Fox and confirmed that game was still in development at that same time as well, which in 2015, when that happened, was actually a very big deal. And so I just think that there's a great chance that if Metroid or Metroid Prime 4, for example, doesn't show up at E3, I think that all the way in the 11th hour of 2021, at the Game Awards in December, the last month of the year, I still think there's a great chance the game or games could show up at that place as well. I mean, that's a great forum to see it happen. So all of this is to say, to me, I don't think we should put all of our chips on E3 next week. Like, it's E3 or nothing when it comes to Metroid. Like, I think that that's foolish and setting ourselves up for disappointment. Even though I optimistically think there's a great chance it's going to be there. If it's not there, I'm hoping that everyone can kind of hear what I'm saying and laying out today and realize, okay, Rob reminded me we didn't see Metroid at E3 this year, but there's still plenty of time to go, so Nintendo very likely will show us some kind of Metroid thing later in the year. Now, obviously, to just kind of wrap up the video and summarize with this last point here, what happens if everything I'm saying is wrong and Metroid doesn't show up at all and isn't discussed at all by Nintendo in 2021 at all? It's December 31st, it's 11:59 p.m., it's the last minute of 2021, and my early year prediction of seeing Metroid Prime 4 in 2021 just doesn't happen. Well, first, that would mean that I was wrong, and that's totally possible. I don't know everything. I'm just, when it comes to this specific thing, the Prime 4 thing, I'm just a fan putting my thoughts and my theories and my desires out there that we would see the game this year. But I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong at that time, I mean, I'm not too proud that I'm not going to be willing to say, hey, I was wrong, and like have another discussion about that. And we just have to keep waiting for that game or keep waiting for Metroid. Like, we've all been waiting for Metroid long enough at this point, right? What's another year or two? It's just par for the course at that point. But, you know, to end this optimistically, I'll remind you guys, I don't think that's going to happen. We're going to see Metroid this year. I think there's a great chance we're going to see Metroid Prime 4 this year. And E3, in a week, is a great time to do it. I think there's a great chance that it's going to show up. So that's what I have to say about that. Those are my thoughts about Metroid at E3 and what the chances are. Hopefully this made sense to you guys. Obviously, I want to hear how you feel about it. Does my kind of discussion make sense to you, or do you have totally opposite feelings on if Metroid has a chance at showing up at the E3 Direct? I obviously want to hear what you guys have to say as well. So with that, this video is a wrap. Of course, thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.